trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him and he will make your path straight. Submit to him. Say yes to him and he will make the path for you. Who would have known 70 years ago when Arnie Lorna wanted to go on a date with Uncle Tom that would set off a series of events that would lead to me becoming the pastor of this church? But if you submit to him, if you say yes to him, he will make your path straight. Then later in the week I was reading from Luke 5 and it sort of hit me, this is exactly what that verse is about. So I'm going to read a passage from Luke 5 and it sums up beautifully what it means to submit to him and he will make your path straight. This is Luke 5 starting at verse 1. It says this, one day as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and said, put it out a little from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he'd finished speaking, he said to Simon, put it out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch. Simon answered, Master, we worked all hard all day and all night and we haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I'll do what you say, I'll let down the nets. When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signalled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came in and they filled both boats so full they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, Go away from me, Lord, because I'm a sinful man. For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish that they'd taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, Don't be afraid, from now on you will fish for people. So they pulled up their boats on the shore, left everything and followed him. Now, just setting the scene for this story, Jesus on the edge of the lake preaching a great sermon and people surrounding him and you've got Simon and James and John washing their nets after a hard night fishing and they'd been out all night, but it had been a fruitless night. They'd caught nothing and they were professional fishermen. So basically they'd been out all night, they'd had no income, this was their livelihood. I wonder what their mood was like as they washed their nets. I wonder if they'd eaten their meal out on the lake, if they were worried about the lack of fish that they'd caught. Were they hungry? Were they worried? I wonder, they must have been listening to Jesus as he spoke, but they were washing their nets and maybe worried about the future. And I wonder what their mood was as they heard. But then something interesting happened and Jesus came to them and said, Can you take me out a little bit in the boat because I want to speak to these people? So picture this. Jesus getting crowded out by the surging crowd, spotting the boats, going over and saying to Simon, who owns one of the boats, Can you take me out a little bit? And Simon is busy doing his net stuff, but he says, yes, I'll do it anyway. I'm busy, I've had a bad night. He dropped his net, took Jesus out a little bit and just let Jesus speak. So that was the first yes that Simon gave. He could have easily said, I'm busy, I've got to do these nets, we didn't catch anything, I just want to get home, have something to eat, have a sleep, because we're going out again tonight. But he said, yes, okay. So he took Jesus out a little bit from the lake, and the first yes that we see Simon do, I'll push out the boat. But Jesus doesn't stop there. Because then Jesus says, after speaking, he says, when he'd finished speaking, he said to Simon, go out into the deeper water and let down your nets for a catch. Now think about this. Simon had to bring his boat back into shore, get his nets that he'd just washed and repaired, put them back onto the boat, go back out and fish. Jesus wasn't a fisherman, so Jesus knew nothing about fishing. And here's Jesus saying, go back in, get all your stuff, go back out and go fishing again. Now for Simon, this is a bit too much. Like, it was easy to say yes to taking him out a little bit. Okay, I'll do that, okay. But now Jesus is asking him to go a step further, put in the effort, go back out, da-da-da. And it's interesting what happened next. When he'd finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into deep water. And then Simon responded, but master. Here come the objections. But master, I understand what you're asking me to do and understand that you're a rabbi and you're respected and I understand all that. But honestly, we've worked hard all night and we haven't caught anything. Think about those two things. We've worked hard all night. They were tired. They were disillusioned probably. They'd cast their nets time and again, not catching anything. They were professional fishermen. They knew where to fish. They knew how to fish. And here he was saying, go out again. Master, we've worked hard all night. We've had enough. We just want to go home, have something to eat and go to sleep. You can almost hear the weariness in Simon's voice when he says, but Master, we've been out all night. The second objection, and we haven't caught anything. It's one thing to work all night. It's another thing to not achieve anything when you're working. So imagine hours as a professional fisherman doing the whole thing and not catching one fish. I go fishing when I'm out in the river as a hobby. If I go fishing for 5 hours and don't catch anything, I'm pretty ticked off. And it's not my job. I just go for fun. If I go for 5 hours and don't get anything, these guys, it was their living. They'd not caught anything. And the worst thing about this is, like I said, they were professional fishermen. They knew that the only time to catch fish on the lake of Gennesaret was during the night time. If you go out in the morning during the daytime like this, fish aren't there anymore. They're down the bottom of the lake. You can't catch fish. And Jesus says, go out and, oh, you're kidding me. We've worked all night, plus you don't know what you're talking about. This is a bit... So for Simon and his mates, it's decision time. They said yes once. Are they going to say yes a second time? This is a bigger commitment now. This is actually saying, okay, we're going to do... You don't know what you're talking about. We know what we're... And so, are you going to say yes again? You know what I've found in my life? Occasionally God will ask you to launch out into deeper water. And it doesn't make sense. And from your point of view, you can't see how that will work. And sometimes you feel inadequate. And sometimes... I remember when I was asked by my youth pastor to become a youth leader. And I was in high school. I was about 17 years old. And I couldn't speak in public. Believe it or not, I could not speak in public. I'd never actually in class in high school got up and spoke in English because I couldn't speak in public. And so he said, can you be a youth leader? Number one, I'd never spoken in public. Number two, I didn't know what leader meant. Like, what does that even mean? I go to youth and have fun, and I don't want to do this. And he said, go away and pray about it. Now, when your youth leader says that, you don't actually do it. All you do is say no. After a week, yeah, I prayed about it. I said no. But silly me went away and prayed about it and said, God, I don't want to do this. You don't want me to do it, do you? And then I felt God say, I want you to do it. So I went back to my youth leader and said yes, became a youth leader. Then I remember the next time when by this time I was going to theological college down in Katoomba. And so I'd given up work, obviously, was about to go, and God spoke to me and said, I want you to give away everything you own except your clothes, all your money, your car. I want you to give away everything and just rely on me. Now, when a 22-year-old says that, that's just craziness. That's crazy talk, let's face it. And I went home, told my mum and dad. My dad said, you are crazy. Do not do this. If you do this, I'm cutting you out of the will. This is crazy talk. But I felt God say to me, give away everything. And so crazy me did it. I gave away everything. I gave away my car to the youth pastor. I said, do whatever you want with it. It's yours. Got all the money that I'd saved up, gave it to missions. Gave away literally everything I owned except my clothes, and went to another state to live with no money, just clothes, nothing to pay for the first week of tuition and boarding. And I just went. And it was, looking back, it was crazy. But I said yes to God. And you might know the story. A year later, this girl turned up at Bible college who was immensely rich. She owned a car, she had a heap of money, and then she liked me. And I married her. I'm glad I said yes to giving away everything because I got more. That's the way my life seems to go. I remember when I was here at this church as a youth leader way back last century, 1998 I started. And I was youth development officer for the town as well. So the skate park and the half-court basketball were put in when I was youth development officer. And so I was doing really well in that job, and I was youth leader. And God spoke to me and said, I want you to give up that job and I want you to go pastor somewhere else, but I'm not going to tell you where. So resign your job, but I won't tell you where you're going. And once again, the very week that I felt God say that, Education Queensland approached me and said, we see the job that you do in the schools here, and we want to offer you a position. We want to offer you a position in youth guidance and counselling, and we will enrol you in uni and pay for you to do a uni course with a guaranteed job at the end. Came the same week that God told me, give up your job and you won't know where you're going. So what do? The common sense thing is to say, yes, well, that door opened because God opened it, surely. Like it's a good paying job at the end of it, and what a great thing that God... But I went home, talked to Carly, and we've got to turn that down, and we just got to resign from the church here with nowhere to go and 2 little kids. So we said yes. That next week, someone from the state executive of ACC rang up and said, we've got a little church at Gayndah that needs a pastor. Are you interested? You see, the yeses in God quite often don't make sense. They lack common sense. But the yeses in God, when you feel God saying yes, when you say yes, even though it seems crazy, when you say yes, he takes you on a path. You can say, Simon could have said here, listen, we've been out all night, we just want to go home. He had the decision, launch out or go home, have something to eat, stay comfortable. Because it's crazy, there's no fish caught in the day, launch out or stay comfortable. He could have said, no, it's just not, it's crazy. Like he could have just gone with the status quo, or he could have gone out, this is not going to work, but I'll do it anyway. Being in control and being out of control. It's a choice. Do I just do what's safe and what's comfortable, or do I say yes to God and see where it takes me? And that's what Simon was facing right here. His choices are, not today. Like, you're an amazing carpenter and a really, really good preacher, but no, fishing, you know nothing. Not today. I just want to... Or come back in, load up the nets, do everything, launch out, knowing that you won't catch anything. Simon made the decision. Yeah, okay, I'll do it. Simon answered, Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I'll do it. Because you say so, because I'll do it. His was a yes. Nothing in this decision made sense. But because you say so, yes. And so in he came. And he loaded up the nets. And they went out knowing they wouldn't catch anything. Then it says when they'd done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. All night when they should be fishing, as professional fishermen, caught nothing, went out because God told them to, even though it was stupid, caught such a large number of fish, the nets began to break, and they sit on their pastors, and they had so much. And I love it, the way it simply says here, when they'd done so. When they'd done what Jesus asked them to do, it was miraculous. It wasn't just a normal catch. It was so massive that their boats began to sink. It was an amazing catch of fish. It was the result of Simon saying yes. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. A series of yeses in a row to God resulted in a miracle. When you keep saying yes to God, it's amazing where God takes you. And a little yes then becomes a yes to something else and becomes a yes to something else. And what I've realised is that God asks you to do something simple. And when you say yes, the next thing is something bigger. Okay, yeah, I'll say yes to that. And the next something is something bigger. Okay, I'll say yes to that. And as you continue to say yes, he continues to up the ante and say, what about this? What about this? Steps of faith. Anywhere along that chain, he could have said no, and it would have finished. And no one would have thought the worst of Simon if he said, no, not today. I need to go home. No one there would have thought that's bad. They would have just, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. And Simon's life would have continued on. Because the story doesn't end there. They caught all these fish. And then it says that Simon Peter saw this, he fell to his knees, and you're amazing, and this is incredible. And then Jesus said, don't be afraid, from now on you will fish for people. So now Jesus is saying, you've now caught this massive catch of fish. Like this is setting you up financially. This is amazing. You can expand your business. Let's face it, you could buy another boat now. You could hire a crew. You could expand your business. You can join the church and you could earn money for the church. This is so fantastic. This is amazing. But what Jesus then says is, I want you to leave all of this, including the fish in the boat, and follow me. This is madness. Leave everything, leave the fish he's just caught, and follow me into the unknown. Not knowing where your income will come from. And Simon was married. Like, he had a wife involved in this. Not knowing where your income will come from, not knowing how life will turn out. I want you to leave what you've done all your life and risk it to follow me. How's someone going to react to that? It says here, so they pulled up their boats onto the shore. They left everything. Now, when Luke describes it as everything, they left everything. They left that miraculous catch. I wonder what happened as they walked away. I wonder if the crowd surged around and grabbed some fish for themselves. Because the crazy thing is, Simon and his partners left. They left everything. They left the catch that was there. They left their future. They left their assets that they'd worked hard for. They left their stream of income. They left everything to follow Jesus. They said yes. And so what we see is a little yes, another yes, another yes, another yes to following Jesus. This is amazing now. This is Simon Peter saying, no matter what God asks me to do, it's a yes. Even when it's crazy, it's a yes. Because that will take me on the path. When I submit to him, he will make my path straight. Jesus said, leave everything, and he said yes, and he left everything, literally left everything, their boats, everything. Those series of yeses that day completely turned his life upside down. He followed Jesus for another few years. He ended up preaching the first ever church sermon. You can read it in Acts. And 3,000 people were saved on that first church service. And then in the early church, he was a major leader. And then he was executed for his faith. All because, and part of what he wrote is part of our Bible today. You can read 2 letters that he wrote in 1 and 2 Peter. Just imagine, go back to on the shore at Gennesaret. If he'd said, Jesus said, can you take me out a bit? No, I'm busy. No one would have thought badly of him. Or if at the next step when Jesus said, go out and fish even though it's crazy and you won't catch anything, he thought, go out into deep water. If he would have said, no, Jesus, we're tired, no one would have thought worse of him and he would have gone on being a fisherman. Or at the next step when Jesus actually said, leave everything, there were people in that crowd that thought he was stupid when he did that. I wonder what his wife said when he went home. By the way, honey, I've just given away everything. I'm now following Jesus. I wonder what she said. I wonder what happened. Him and his partners, they left and they followed Jesus and ended up being a part of something that was absolutely incredible. And you can read John, some of his letters that he wrote. And it's amazing what their life led to by just saying yes, even when it was crazy. And I stood at Johnny's graveside this week and I looked down just thinking about my life and Auntie Lorna's life. And Auntie Lorna, that first Sunday she went to church, said yes. And it not only changed her life, it changed my life. Because then she started praying for another Dallmann. And then through a miraculous thing, my good mate, as I was a 3-year-old, took me to church with him. And I can still remember the first time. I was 4, he was 3. And I can remember him saying, do you want to come to church with me? Because it's really boring and I want someone to talk to. And so I said, yes, all right, no worries. And I went to church and got saved. Yes. And then I remember when youth leadership, yes, even though I'm totally inadequate. How about going to Bible college and becoming a pastor? Yes. How about giving away everything? Yes. How about resigning from Chinchilla when you've got no job to go to and a wife and 2 kids to support? Yes. How about coming back to Chinchilla in 2007 when nobody else wants the job? And my father-in-law rang me up when he heard that I'd taken the job at Chinchilla and said, what are you doing taking my wife and grandkids to that church? Go somewhere else. And we had a big offer from a city church in Adelaide at the same time. And we turned down the big city church and said yes to Chinchilla because we felt God say, take Chinchilla. It was an amazing thing to see how God said, take Chinchilla rather than the step up the ladder to Adelaide. Yes. It's amazing when you say yes to God that he make your path straight. Something else happened this week that really encouraged me. The pastor of the church, when I first got saved in Toowoomba, the pastor and his wife pastored. The pastor died some years ago, but his wife is still alive. She's 90 years old. And I ring her up. Whenever I have a prayer request from someone in Chinchilla's sick or whatever, I ring up Mrs. Barrett. I still call her Mrs. Barrett. And she's 90. And I rang her up this week with a prayer request for someone in Chinchilla, someone not church, not church at all. I said, this is someone not church. They just approached me at the coffee shop asking if I could pray about a situation, so I'm giving it to you. And she said to me, did you know you're exactly where God wants you to be? And I thought about that. And I thought about it because he made my path straight simply because I said yes. I said yes as a young person to Jesus. I said yes as a youth leader. I said yes. And I've got this policy, unless God says no, say yes. No matter how stupid it feels or how... And my father, you're crazy giving away everything. And he didn't talk to me for 6 months after that because he thought I was crazy. Yes. Yes. When God tells you to do something, yes. It's amazing where it will take you. You guys have said yes to youth leadership. And sometimes you'll feel inadequate. Sometimes you'll think, what am I doing? Sometimes you'll think, I don't want to answer a question on stage, so I'll say no. But if you say yes to everything, God will make your path straight and you'll end up where he wants you to be. And that mightn't be pastoring a church, that might be something else, but you will go on the path he wants you to when you keep saying yes. Yes is a powerful word in God's economy when he's told you to do something. Because it takes you on a straight path to your best for him and your best life. If Simon Peter way back here had said no, he probably would have been a fisherman all his life, been successful, loved God, but not been his best for God. And for me, as you keep saying yes, you live your best. If you say no, you can still live a great life for God, but is it your best life for God? And if you're sitting here today and you're thinking, I've said no a lot to God, you can still say yes from now because he's got another best for you. And as you keep saying yes from now, he will take you to your best. God loves yeses, particularly when they don't make sense. God loves yeses. And so, yes to God can take you to amazing places. I choose yes.